So Friday, October 3rd, it should be a fun one. It's also first Friday in this neighborhood, so if you get here earlier and you want to just have a full night of arts and culture, you can get here early. So yeah, whatever you want to do.
That was Joanna Lioce, past guest of this show and current booker at the new Mabuhay Gardens. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and working people who make this city unique and amazing. Before I move on to this bonus episode, I wanted to remind you that you have until next Tuesday, September 30th, to vote in 48 Hills Best of the Bay. There are many, many categories besides Best Podcast, which we snagged back in 2021 and are fighting for again this year. Wink, wink. Visit 48hills.org for more info. Back to this episode. A few months ago, I caught wind of something fucking magical. Since I moved to San Francisco back in 2000, I've heard of a venue in North Beach back in the 70s and 80s that was technically a Filipino restaurant, but that also doubled as a famed punk rock club. Listen in as I chat with Joanna about the history of Mabuhay Gardens and the resurrection of this venerated San Francisco spot. Here's my chat with Joanna Lioce. We're back at Vesuvio, where this podcast started 8 years ago, and I'm talking with Joanna Lioce.
Yes.
And back on the podcast.
Yeah, I know.
We're here to talk about the. Are we calling it the Mabuhay Gardens? Are we calling it the new Mabuhay?
It's funny because the times that I've been asked about it, people have asked me if I call it the Mab, if I call it the Fab Mab, if I call it like what I call it, and I say just as a person who's always been like this, I call it the Mabuhay Gardens because I wasn't there. And I wasn't of the age to be there. I've never been to a show there. I didn't obviously experience any of the really like epic time there. So I feel like, in order to call it the Mab and the Fab Mab and stuff, it's kind of like an inside, like it's like a cute nickname.
Like moving to California and saying hella in your first week.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm trying too hard.
Just like, come on, that's not it. Or like calling, like, I don't know, it's like calling something a pet name that doesn't belong to you. Or I don't know, it's just a little bit like, maybe we'll get there eventually.
So Mabuhay Gardens,
I call it Mabuhay Gardens.
Is that what it's going to be, like its official name?
Well, people are calling it the Fab Mab. I believe their social media is the Fab Mab, and then I think their website is actually the Fab Mab. So I think that's kind of what they're going with, which makes sense for them. There was talk when I initially started talking to the newest, I guess, quote unquote owner, the person who's trying to take it over fully. He was asking me what they thought or what I thought they should call it, and I said, well, I think, if it's a venue space, you kind of have to go with Mabuhay. Like, that's like a built-in, it's historically, that's what it is. It would be like if the Fillmore closed and then you change the name. Like, there's no
to 24-hour fitness or Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. Like, those are great places as well. But come on, let's call a spade a spade. So,
yeah.
But
we can get into all of that, including the people doing it and what they're doing now.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Can you give folks as much of the history of the spot as you can? A lot of people I've found, as I'm telling, I'm like so excited about this.
Yeah.
I know a little bit, but everyone I tell about is like, especially if I call it the Mab, they're like, and then I say Mabuhay Gardens, and they're either like, oh, awesome, or what's that? So I think a lot of people still don't really know.
Yeah, I have a very limited, I would say, like, I have no expertise because, again, I wasn't there. It closed in 1987. I was not in California. I was still a little lady on the East Coast. I think I was like 5 when it closed. But from what I've gathered from friends in the neighborhood and people who did hang out there, and even just the press and the response that has come out since the announcement of them reopening, it just was a restaurant that had shows, and then it got crazy, and all sorts of amazing bands played there. It was like a really rad place to be by the sounds of it. I take it as a very good sign that on social media there are a lot of people who obviously hung out there, and they are very trepidatious about its reopening, which I think is just so appropriate. Like,
totally.
There were a lot of things on like Facebook, for example, where people were like, oh, it's going to be like $20 cocktails and $60 tickets. And I don't tend to chime in on a lot when it comes to Facebook, just because.
Oh, you have restraint.
I try.
Where did
And
you
I
get
also,
that?
I don't actually have restraint. So that's why I'm like, this is not like the proper platform for me to be arguing with strangers about like politics, especially right now, because I will kick off, as they say. So I just sort of keep a lot of it to myself because I don't think it's very productive. However, there were a couple people saying that, and I just sort of chimed in and was like, well, I'm booking a show there for the opening, a quote unquote, like soft opening night. I hate that term, but the opening night, October 3rd, and my tickets are going to be $20. I have a kind of rule with shows. I like things to be accessible. I think, it's all a work in progress. We're going to see how it goes, but I wouldn't book an opening night party of a venue, especially that venue, for more than that. I think people should be able to go. I don't think drinks should be crazy. I have nothing to do with the bar. I run a different bar. So they've asked me for advice on the bar, so that's probably going to happen in the next couple weeks.
Like consultant.
Yeah, I just was like, I think there's certain things, when we talked about it very briefly, Tom and I were discussing it, and I basically said, there's sort of a theory to me when it comes to bars, which is keep the low end low and the high end high. Like if someone comes in and they want an $18 scotch, give them an $18 scotch. But if they want a shot of whiskey and a beer, like do a $12 special. Like just make it, things don't need to be as insanely expensive as they are. And I think music and live music especially is something that should be accessible for people. And, slow and steady wins the race, because I think when people put a big price tag on things, it just sort of limits I think it limits a lot of people's ability to enjoy music as well as make music. So
well, and I'm thinking one of your sort of jobs or responsibilities is going to be making good shows, which gets people in.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then, we'll get to that in a minute.
For sure.
Okay, and before we move out of the 70s, 80s into the now, do you want to name drop some of the big bands now that have played that maybe weren't so big at the time?
Yeah,
some of them were.
The Adolescents played there, Devo played there, Flipper played there. I mean, there's so many. Like the Dead Kennedys obviously played there. It's so funny. People have been like, "Are the Dead Kennedys going to play?" And I'm like, I know. Well, I have a feeling that's probably never. But my guess is like, I don't think like some girl who is like, "Hi," coming along and being like, "Hi, do you guys want to bury 30 years of like complete shit that you guys have for each other just so you can play a show for me? That'd be cool."
Like, well, you did see Jello in Last Black Man, right, on a Segway scooter?
Yes, I did. I actually saw him last week at a show. So he's he's around. He's a neighborhood guy. I just try to be sensitive about these things. And I think if someone was interested in doing something and they want to talk to me about it, I would definitely be into it. But I've talked to some really interesting people even in the last few weeks. I've been getting a lot of emails, so it's kind of hard to keep everything straight. We were just saying before we started recording, it's a crazy time of year. But there's people that have made documentaries that involve Mabuhay. There's people that were involved with like Flipper that put on music festivals, that did Mabuhay reunions at the Fillmore, in 2007, I believe, and they're interested in putting that on there. I mean, there's a lot of there's sort of a built-in audience for a very specific thing, and I think that's really cool. There's also been a lot of talk, the bands that I have for the opening night aren't traditionally punk bands. They're not punk bands, but they're not punk bands.
Right.
I wouldn't call them punk bands. But I think that,
punk adjacent.
They're fun bands. They're dancey bands. They're not, I'm not putting on like a house show or anything. I mean, I just don't know anything about house music. No offense to house music. But I would like it to be something that is, that's just fun local stuff, and get touring bands in there, get punk bands in there, get everyone in there. I run a series in the alley between in Kerouac Alley between Vesuvio and City Lights, and I try to make that as diverse as I can. I just think I think there's all kinds of really good music, and I think pigeonholing things as just a punk venue is sort of limiting. But that being said, I love a punk show, and I would be super excited to throw a ton of punk shows there. Yes. I mean, that to me is I throw a lot of them in the alley. It's sort of, that's sort of like my jam anyway. I think that there's all sorts of stuff that, I think I've heard the big debate of if Devo is a punk band or not, stuff like that. Where
I'm watching the doc right now.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I really need to.
I'm
sink
having that conflict with myself, and
people
it doesn't also matter.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know. Is it good? Is it this?
What they are, and they're awesome.
And I think there's all sorts of music, especially. I mean, I think inherently, especially right now, a lot of new music and making music and doing things, especially that are accessible to all sorts of people, is inherently sort of like punk and political and all of these things. And I think gathering people together to enjoy art in this political climate is a pretty big statement to the current world.
It's a resistance,
I
think.
It's also,
And a
I
celebration.
think it's a celebration of things that are not, that aren't corporate, that aren't money, that aren't driven by fucking Jeff Bezos and shit. Like, it's like none of that's going to come up, and people are just going to come and dance and have a good time and enjoy each other and, have some drinks, don't have some drinks, whatever you want to do. But I think, inherently just not being on your computer and not being on your phone and experience something live and having conversations and meeting your neighbors and meeting people that aren't your neighbors. And
I think you just rattled off all the different themes of this podcast over the years.
It's like all very it's very important things. It's like it's a shame that I think a lot of those aspects of life get lost the farther we get, and I think that live music and theater and arts and everything is very, very important. So I think holding on to that is big.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
So we've obviously talked about it. This is what this episode is about.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on?
So okay, so I know everyone's like, everything, and I'm like, I really don't.
Well, I'll just say I've lived here 25 years, and I probably in my first 3 or 4 years is when I started hearing about the Mab, the Mabuhay Gardens, and I pretty much never would have thought that would happen.
I mean, the funny thing is, I worked at Vesuvio for like 22 years, and it's around the corner. So it's one of those things that was always like this sort of like white whale in the neighborhood that like you didn't really, not like you didn't talk about it, but there wasn't anything to talk about. Like it was just there, and you knew that it used to be there.
Like a landmark.
Yeah, and you knew that like, quote unquote older people, I guess just older than us, not necessarily older, but older than you and I, for example, used to hang out there, and it was crazy, and like, people went nuts there, and there was all sorts of like crazy shit that went on. Like that's what you knew. However, you also knew like, man, that was shitty that I missed that. However, like, you missed a lot of things. Young people miss things that we got to see. It's just the way of life.
Can I just update FOMO? It's not fear, y'all. It's just, I'm just bummed.
No, I know. It's like, that would have been so cool.
Bummed of missing out.
I mean, FOMO is right. It's like, I would have loved to have seen that.
And I'm not going to get hung up on it. It's just, oh well.
Yeah, it would have been cool. It would have been cool to see that. And then you let it go. But it's like, wow, I really would have loved to have seen that show. Or like, wow, I'd really love to talk to someone who went to that show.
Exactly.
I'd love to know more about that show. Like, I can let go of the fact that I wasn't alive. Like, there's nothing I could do to change that. However, do I want to talk about it? Yeah. Do I want to hear about it? Like, absolutely. I think it's interesting. So a few years ago, I started doing the Wacky Wednesday series. I've been booking in the city for a long time. I started doing the Wacky Wednesday series outside of Vesuvio 5 years ago after COVID. Basically just because everyone was bummed. There was nothing to do. There weren't any shows inside. Like, coming to work sucked. Like, it was just everyone was not in a good mood. And so I kind of figured out that you could have live music outside. The city went for it, I think, because they were just like, God, we got to do something. Like, everyone is over it. So it was a good time to start it, and it just became this like sort of festival thing. So that got attention in this neighborhood, and there was a woman who inherited the Mabuhay, basically, and it was then, after Mabuhay, it was Broadway Studios and FAME, and FAME was an acronym for Fashion, Art, Music, and Entertainment, I want to say.
Okay.
So she had events, but she had a modeling agency in the FAME building, which is, the Mabuhay is the downstairs, and then the FAME building was upstairs. And the shows that I'm going to be throwing most likely are going to be in the upstairs because it's just a bigger room. I feel like it's more comfortable. I think that if the downstairs still looked like the Mabuhay, it was still like sort of that like crusty punk, I'd be like, hell yeah, but it doesn't. It's just a little bit different. But again,
it's been almost 40.
It's been
years.
42
38?
years. I mean, what, 80? Oh no, because I'm 42. So it's been 38 years.
38 years. Yeah. That's
so 37 years. Yeah, it's been a while.
And at least one earthquake.
At least one. And and God knows what. It's like this. This neighborhood is old. Like, stuff doesn't get updated. Right. So so they were running it sort of as an event space, a modeling agency, all sorts of stuff. I have no idea. This is all 80s, 90s, 2000s. And then after the Wacky Wednesday started to get some more attention, this woman, Francesca, who was running it, approached me and wanted me to basically like reopen the Mabuhay. Yes. And this was maybe like 2 years ago.
Did you pinch yourself?
I did, but then I like pinched myself, and then as soon as like the pinch wore off, I was like, what?
What does that mean?
Like, that's like, I would have to quit. I basically have like 3 jobs, and I was like, that's like 3 jobs within one
2
job,
more,
and I
yeah.
would have to quit all of my jobs to do this job. And I also am a booker. Like, I manage a bar, but I'm not a sound engineer. I'm not a light tech. I'm not, I don't know anything about. I'm horrible with computers. Like, you and I have discussed this. I'm
Yes, we have.
not good. It's very limiting in some aspects, but very good in others, in the sense of like, I know the way my brain works and what I'm good at, and I'm very comfortable with that.
You know
So,
thyself.
yeah, I know thyself too well, unfortunately. No, just kidding. So we talked about it a little bit, and then it
This was a couple years Okay.
ago, and then it kind of became like pretty clear that this was like a ground up. Like, this was going to be basically me, who does not know what they're doing in that aspect, going into this massive space and opening a venue. And I was just like, I can't do that. I mean, there's no way. If I started my entire career over, I couldn't do that. Like,
Right.
I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
And because it's such a historical and like amazing place and story, I was just like, someone else should do this. Like, this is great. That someone should not be me. It's like, it's like if someone asked me to perform open heart surgery, I'd be like, you don't want me to do that.
Right.
So,
It's a
I just
noble
don't
cause, just not me.
But I just literally don't know how to do it.
Right.
If I did, I would, but I do not. So, so then, some time went by, and there was some stuff with Francesca and her family, and there's a lot of like, family politics, stuff like that. And then the short version, I think, without blowing anything up that isn't my business, but Francesca actually passed away.
Okay.
So that happened, I want to say maybe not that long ago, a couple months ago.
Okay.
And she had been working with this other man named Tom, and Tom then got involved more than he had previously been. He had been involved for a long time. And then it was like, let's see what we can do, and let's see if we can buy the venue. So they started GoFundMe, and they're trying to get it going. And it is, as predicted, a very large undertaking, but he does have a team of people who's working with him. My good friend Lapo, who's done some Wacky Wednesday stuff, he did a film night for the first year, and he's a neighborhood guy. He used to run a gallery called the Emerald Tablet that had a lot of different readings and art and like all sorts of stuff. Just a really cool community space. He's Italian, so he spends time in the U.S. and then his other time in Europe, which is, like, fuck him. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
no,
yeah.
Lapo's the best.
Lucky dog.
I know,
fuck him.
what
Yeah.
a dick. No, but so he's really been putting in an extreme amount of work, and he's the kind of person who if he wasn't involved, I think I would be a lot more nervous. Like, he's a very dependable and very, I think a lot of this relies on his ingenuity and his commitment to arts and culture in North Beach specifically. So
amazing.
So he's
So with that
killing
new
it.
crew, you were like, now I'll think.
Well,
now I'll do it.
it was so basically. I skipped over some stuff, but basically, Tom kind of came in, and I think he'd gotten my name from a few people. We had a meeting at the Mabuhay, and I walked in and was just like, holy shit, this is cool. Like, I'd never been in there, and I'd never been in the upstairs. I'd never seen anything, and I definitely had my business brain on, but I also had my like starry-eyed, like, holy shit, this is
I
so
think that's
rad.
appropriate.
Yeah, but I kind of, I kept it good. I kept it chill enough, and I basically agreed to book one show a month. And I was initially going to start in February, and then he was
This
like,
February or next?
This
The one that already
next
passed.
year.
Coming up.
This just happened a few months ago.
Right.
So I have shows going on through mid-November, and
Wacky
then
Wednesday.
those happen till the end of October. Then I have a couple other shows between the Makeout Room and some other venues in November. And December is just not easy for anybody. There's
Right.
family and God knows what working. And then January I'm going to be on the East Coast. So I basically was just like, I can't give my full attention to this until January, or February. But then we talked about it a little bit more, and it sounded like they needed to get the ball rolling. And I said, okay, what if I do one show in October, November, December? I'm skipping January because I have a previous commitment that month, and then I'll come back in February. And that was kind of how it started. And so October 3rd, we have the first show. And
Tell us who's playing.
it is Kelley Stoltz is headlining, who is the best. We love him. White Lightning Company from Portland, Oregon is going to be here, and the Boars, who are just always a good time. So the thing about the show that I'm super excited about is all of the people in all of those bands, I'm friends with all of them, and they're all like great people, which is great also because it's the first show at this venue. So I'm going to be very nervous about everything going off the way that, and things will inevitably, it's a show. Things always get a little messy at times, but it will be good to have the support of these specific people that are all very equipped to help me if there is any type of disaster. So selfishly, that was part of it. But the more, the moreover of it was that they're 3 bands that I love. They're all really fun. They're super entertaining. They're super dancey. They're, if I was throwing a big party, those are the 3 bands that I would want. And they're just like high energy, really fun. And I think it's a good opening. I think it's like get 1 touring band in there and 2 local. And that's kind of ideally what I would like to do in the future is, if you have 1 show a month, I'm in a pretty, as I keep joking, and I'm sorry, Mom, but tits position over there. Because I'm like, well, 1 show a month, it's a lot of work, but it's not, you can do it. And if it's 3 bands, it's pretty easy, not easy, but it's pretty nice to build a show that way when you have some extra time. So, get someone in from out of town, get 1 or 2, maybe 2 bands from out of town, whatever. Just keep it kind of simple and keep the shows accessible to everyone and just have a good time. So, yeah.
Do you want to summarize all the details, address, time, date, that kind of thing, and maybe say where folks can find tickets?
So for that show, the tickets are on EventBrite. So you can go to EventBrite, and it's Kelley, Kelley, Stoltz, Stoltz. So his name is just spelled kind of differently. So you can look it up. If on my Instagram, there's a link in my bio to the tickets, and mine is also spelled weird. It's Jo Lioce, which is my name, but it's JOLIOCE. So you can get Eventbrite tickets that way. Tickets are, I think, $23.18 with charges.
That sounds right. I just bought mine.
Yeah, it's there's a couple bucks, and then $20 at the door. It's at 435 Broadway, and doors are at 7. Shows at 8. So
on Friday,
October 3rd. Yes, Friday, October 3rd.
This will all be in the show notes, but I'll want folks to hear.
Yeah, so Friday, October 3rd. It should be a fun one. It's also First Friday in this neighborhood, so if you get here earlier and you want to just have a full night of arts and culture, you can get here early. So, whatever you want to do.
That was Joanna Lioce. We recorded this episode upstairs at Vesuvio. Find tickets on Eventbrite for the October 3rd show at Mabuhay Gardens, featuring Kelley Stoltz, the Boars, and Portland's White Lightning. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, meet and get to know Lisa Davidson, iron worker on the Golden Gate Bridge. Episode 3 drops next Tuesday, September 30th, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 8th season, we have more than 280 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Find us on Substack for our monthly newsletter and more. And follow us on Instagram and Threads at StoriedSF. Reach us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Try to stay hopeful in these dark times. Keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.